Despite hostile reaction, the students decided free speech was worth the effort.
The university attempted to impose security fees on the event because they said it was controversial. And then they attempted to cancel the event. And on the day of the event, they allowed a mob to block access and prohibit students from attending the event.
Protesters were allowed to lock arms and block the entrances, creating a serious safety risk, despite assurances of a safe and secure environment from the administration and the presence of campus police.
Come on! Come on! Come on! Block this shit off! Block that shit off!
Hey! If you guys, you know what? If you guys really want to see it, this is on the internet being streamed live. But the point is, you ain't going in through that door.
While the mob was chanting "No violence," they were pushing and assaulting those who wanted access to the event.
People pushed me down and I was shoved and elbowed multiple times.
Those guys, they were punching, they were all in front of the door.
Meanwhile, campus police did little to clear the way for students that wanted to enter the auditorium.
Some people were being prohibited from getting inside because of the crowd, yes.
So what kind of control are you exerting over the crowd to let the people
We're
who
not
wanted to come in?
exerting any control over the crowd.
How come?
Because it's not a safety issue at this point.
The most shocking thing to me was the amount of unlawful and violent behavior that the university allowed the protesters to engage in. And they allowed them to stop the students from engaging in their First Amendment rights and just be able to attend Ben's speech.
So we're going to introduce you now to Mark. Mark's a junior at Cal State LA. He was the founding president of the Young Americans for Freedom chapter there. The background of this event, Mark invited Ben Shapiro, and his group there invited Ben Shapiro to come speak. And I'll let him kind of tell you the story of how it unfolded with the administration trying to shut that down.
It was a fun day. So what ended up happening was I did the paperwork just as any student organization would do to bring Ben Shapiro over. And then all of a sudden we started getting hit with bureaucratic moves. All of a sudden we had to pay a security fee. I ended up having professors threaten me personally on Facebook. The assistant professor of sociology, Robert Wide, wanted to wrestle me over Facebook over this event. Yeah, and 3 days before the event, President Covino canceled the event on me, saying that through an email that we're going to cancel this event and we'll schedule on a later date when we have more diverse views, but he never set any date. And on the day of the event, what ended up happening, we went anyways because it's not right for a school just to do that to us. On the day of the event, we had Professor Melina Abdullah, who was the head of Pan-African Studies. She was there leading the protest. We had Professor Talia May Betcher, who is the head professor of philosophy, and there's many other professors over there, but they were the ones instigating the violence, leading the charge against the freedom of speech on campus, and it was really disgusting at Cal State LA that we had professors leading this anti-intellectual movement where we don't want conservatives on campus. And with the help of Young America's Foundation and Alliance Defending Freedom, we filed a federal lawsuit. We took them to court, and I'm proud to say, as of now, the school is no longer going to do any sort of bureaucratic movements to us. And after Ben Shapiro, we brought in 4 speakers after him.
And after bringing in 4 speakers, did any of those professors after the lawsuit, did they engage in instigating riots anymore? Is that
no.
Had any more issues with riots?
No, they were too scared.
Okay. So yeah, Mark's a great example of somebody who stood up. He was willing to challenge the system and has accomplished great change. He's been able to bring multiple speakers in since then without any rioting, ironically, that you're able to accomplish this change, and there's really good change accomplished on his campus. The next student I'm going to introduce to Norvelia. She is a strong, compassionate woman. I've loved getting to meet her as her attorney. Her case is still ongoing. Unlike Mark's, Mark's has concluded, but Norvelia's case is still ongoing. And she bravely tried to introduce a club on campus up at Queens College with an alternative viewpoint to those that were already being presented. Ran into some roadblocks. Could you tell us about that, Norvelia?
Sure. So we tried to start a Students for Life club at Queens College, and we did everything as required. We submitted all the required documentation even beforehand because we knew we would kind of experienced some difficulty. And we had our meeting with the Campus Affairs Committee, and they told us that at the end of it, we would hear back from them on their decision to approve our club at the end of the day. And the end of the day came, and no one reached out to us. And so after a week of reaching out to them and looking for people in the higher ups of the department, they announced to us that they decided not to approve our club. And when we asked about like future things that we could do to better our approach, maybe for the next semester to reapply, they said nothing. So we reached out to our Students for Life of America regional coordinator, who reached out to ADF, and we took legal action.
What happened after that?
Well, they gracefully relented after 2 days of finding out. So yeah, so now we are officially a club at Queens College, and thanks to ADF, yeah.
Could you tell us just a little about what do you do as a student club on campus, and is anybody else doing anything like that?
Absolutely not. We basically want to educate our peers on the pro-life movement and what it means and what we really stand for, which is to protect parents and their children from the abortion industry, really. And we collaborate with community organizations to make that happen. And so we have community resources for pregnant parenting students and all of that. So no other club is doing that on campus, and so they really need us there.
Absolutely. And one last question along those lines: what would happen if you weren't recognized? Are you allowed to meet in on-campus rooms? What can you do as a club that's not if you weren't recognized on campus?
Absolutely nothing. Well, yeah, we wouldn't be able to do anything. Invite speakers if we wanted to. None of that. So yeah, nothing.
Yeah. So in effect, basically by denying Norvegia and the ability to have a club there, they denied you the ability to have your viewpoint heard on campus, right?
Yes.
Absolutely. The next student, Jeff, down here at the very end. Jeff is an 8-year Navy veteran. He served our country, served in the War on Terror, served in humanitarian and aid efforts. And after that service, went back to school. It was a couple years before he'd been at another school, went back to school studying history and government. And because of his background, I think wanted to help promote freedom and liberty. And again, on his campus at a school ironically named Bunker Hill, right next to the United States Constitution, our ship, ran into some issues passing out the Constitution. Could you tell us about that?
Obviously, I served in the military, and after my experience working for the government, I wanted to study history and government so I can get involved and do something about it and promote these ideas that our country was founded on, which are in the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence. So it started around the spring semester when I tried to start a chapter of Young Americans for Liberty on campus. I emailed, I said, hey, I'd like to set up a table, invite a speaker, and start recruiting people to found this club. And they said, oh, no, you can't do that. You have to be a recognized student group first. I said, okay, how do I go about doing that? Where are the instructions? This is our mission statement. I gave them all the paperwork. And week after week after week, I'm following up. Hey, has our club been approved? Are we able to start recruiting or talking on campus? And oh, well, we're still waiting to hear back from this person or the other. And basically it came down to the end of the semester, and I really believed that what they were doing is waiting for the semester to end and then hoping that I didn't come back in the fall and that this would all just go away. So myself, another military veteran, and some other members that were trying to found this club with me, we went out and we started handing out the Constitution and just asking people, hey, would you like a free copy for you to read? And like Caleb said, we're at Bunker Hill Community College. It's a monument to the rebellion against tyranny that this country was founded on and these principles, and yet within minutes, campus police showed up and they were telling us to shut it down, and that if we didn't stop, we reported to the school for disciplinary action or we would be arrested. And as someone who served in the military, I swore a sacred oath to the Constitution to support and defend it, against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and it's close to my heart. Literally, I keep a copy of the Constitution. Oh, I just took my microphone off, but I just think it's absurd, and this is something that needs to be fought for.
Yeah, and what Jeff ran into was exactly what the professor you heard starting off at the beginning saying, college campuses are not free speech areas. It's this idea on campus that for some reason the school gets to tell students what types of ideas can or cannot be expressed. And both Bernadette ran into that issue there. Ironically, at Fresno State, they had actually already eliminated their speech zone. They had gone through their policies, eliminated the speech zone. The campus, according to the campus rules, was already open, unlike Bunker Hill, where we're working on getting those policies changed right now. The campus was already open. It was the administrator, in this case the professor, who wanted to come in and shut down that expression. How did that make you feel to have somebody in that position of authority come and literally right in your face say, I don't even want your message to be heard, and I'm going to have my students eliminate your message too?
It was shocking to have a university professor tell us that we weren't allowed to have those free speech rights, or that he could take away our free speech rights. And a university professor should be encouraging those rights and not erasing it, not censoring it. And especially for him to go out and recruit students to help him do it, that just means that he's teaching students, he's teaching other faculty members and other universities that that's something that's okay, that you can stifle somebody else's free speech, and that censorship is okay. And it's not. And it really was shocking to have somebody in that position of authority tell us exactly that.
Yeah. And Mark, you kind of experienced the same thing there, even with actual violence happening, even more than just kind of the shocking nature of having your message silenced. It was physically violence perpetrated against people trying to hear. How did that make you, and even I think some of your collaborators, some of the other people in your club feel?
Right, one of my co-officers, she now graduated at the time, she was so traumatized by it. She would call me every day, I'm so scared to go to school, can you help me out? It was so bad to the point where she had to go to campus police and ask for an escort to go to class every day. It was really that bad. Some of my members were just utterly terrified after that. Oh, what's going to happen to me next? What's going to happen? Am I going to get jumped in the class? Because they were afraid of not just seeing students. If it was just the students, we really wouldn't mind. But the fact that there were professors and administrators leading on, egging on the violence, it really concerned us that if people in positions of authority can do that to students who believe differently, what else could they do to us?
Yeah. And Norvelia, you had a case where not only after you got recognized as a club, they still haven't changed the policy, so your case is ongoing, right? But you also ran into, I think, some opposition from other students when you tried to do a speech event there. Could you tell us what happened with that?
Well, yeah, we did the Cemetery of the Innocents display, which is a little cardboard tombstone saying RIP on it, to memorialize the unborn children who lose their lives through abortion every day. And when we had it set up on the quad, we had a student come to run around and take all of our signs out. And he was wearing a QC t-shirt, a Queens College t-shirt, representing that the college really did not want me doing this on the quad. And we had already filed, so they couldn't really do anything about stopping us. And so I guess that was their way of trying to stop us. Yeah, so we ran after him, and he had to put everything down. And so, but that happened. So yeah, we are still facing these kinds of challenges.
Yeah, absolutely. And why did you get involved in this movement in the first place? I know Jeff had this background in the military where he's concerned about liberty and freedom. Why did you want to share about pro-life issues on campus? Well,
when I was 16, I found out that my mom, who was 17 at the time, thought about having an abortion, and I just happened to be the person growing inside of her. And so when I found that out, it was startling at first, but I mean, the Lord started working in my heart, and He brought me to the point of wanting, really having a desire to help women in my mother's situation, especially going to college and really giving them a path to staying in college so that they could better take care of their kids in the long run. And so that was my desire, to really help people who find themselves in my mom's situation.
Thanks for sharing that. And Jeff, in response to what happened with the police telling you that you couldn't pass out the Constitution on campus, that you needed some permit besides the First Amendment to be able to pass out that document on campus, what did you do, and what have been the results so far?
Yeah, I mean, it's just ironic that the Constitution itself is what gives us the right to hand out the Constitution on campus, and they were stopping us from doing that. But we did continue to follow up. Within 24 hours, I got a call summoning me to a disciplinary hearing about this. And I said, okay, well, I would like to have a lawyer present for this. And it's short notice. I only had a couple of days. I was like, can I get a lawyer by phone? I also kind of can't afford to pay a lawyer to show up to these sorts of things. Luckily, ADF had my back, and we had somebody ready to come and defend us at that disciplinary hearing. But just hearing the word lawyer, the school was like, oh no, this is just a talk. We're just here to talk. It's a mandatory talk that you have to show up for. But you're not in trouble. We just want to kind of explain the policy to you. And they kind of didn't give me the opportunity to really disagree with the policy or vocalize that during that meeting. It was kind of a lot of talking at us, but they did kind of change gears a little bit once they realized that we were serious about getting these policies changed. So they're like, oh, we just want this meeting to be about helping you get your club recognized. And they did continue to drag their feet because I was trying to ask, where is it written? Where is the policy? Where is the step-by-step instructions so that we can get our club recognized? And it's just a really convoluted process. I don't think that they even had it written down anywhere. It was sort of just this student activities director says, give me your charter, we go to student government, and then they get to decide whether or not you have a right to peaceably assemble with your student group. And I don't think that that's something that they should be allowed to decide. And we sort of just started having unofficial meetings because like Ron Swanson, I say, not to worry, I have a permit. I can do what I want.
And the ironic thing with the policies at Bunker Hill are they, in addition to dragging their feet, not having any written policy, so they get to decide who gets to become a club, they also have a provision in there that says students can't meet together as an organization without being a club. So even meeting together without having been officially recognized, Jeff and the YAL chapter there were technically in violation of these policies. And what Jeff and the club did there, they contacted ADF and Fire. We jointly sent a letter together, and the school there has agreed to change their policies. We're still waiting to see what those actual policies are, but Jeff and his group there were willing to stand up, like all of the students here on this stage, and challenge those policies on their campus. And that's really the last question I'd like to ask each one of you is, I mean, you, in some cases, filed a federal lawsuit against your school. In other cases, were willing to challenge that. Why would you do that? Like, what's in it for you? I'll start with you, Bernadette.
Yeah. Well, it's not just about us. That's the whole thing, is that these are everyone's First Amendment rights. And so if we start to get the ball rolling, and if we actually file a lawsuit, that might inspire other students who face something maybe even worse than what we faced. Because there will be no change if everybody just takes a step back and just says, okay, that's okay, I won't do this again. No, it's part of our rights. So I would encourage other students who are facing any kind of resistance against their group to pursue action, maybe even legal action, to protect your own rights and inspire other students to do the same.
For me, when I started out this journey of starting out my Young Americans for Freedom chapter at Cal State LA, it was never about me to begin with. It was always about the other conservative students, the other students on campus at Cal State LA who are too scared to speak up or who have never heard a conservative viewpoint before. And when I decided to file this federal lawsuit against Cal State LA, it was never about recognition or fame or any of that. It was about all the students at Cal State LA deserve a right to have freedom of speech on campus. And with the help of Young America's Foundation and Alliance Defending Freedom, we were able to fight and win that battle.
That's great. One thing I just want to mention real quick, Mark has a little cough here, and he would never tell you himself, but he's part of the National Guard and was deployed to help fight the wildfires there, and got some smoke in his lungs, so that's why he has a little cough in the background here. Norvia?
Yeah, it really wasn't about me, as I mentioned earlier. It was to help others, but also here, I want other people who come to Queens College to be able to start their club, whatever the viewpoint is, and to be able to express their ideas freely. I want us to have that, and especially in New York, we need that. We need the diversity of thought there. So that's why I did it, and that's why I did it.
Yeah, I'm very passionate about this issue and freedom of speech and the Constitution in general, especially serving in the military. It's like Ronald Reagan said, like, if we lose these freedoms in America, like, where else would you go? This is the last place on earth, and really one of the only places where you have that freedom to talk about ideas that are critical of the government, where other places in the world, you could be killed or sent away, disappeared off to Siberia for these things. And it's just, coming back and moving back home to Boston and seeing that the state of things on college campuses, and how, I remember when I went to college the first time before I was in the military and 10 years later, and how much different it is nowadays, how much more polarized and politicized, and college campuses are really the battleground where, like, political groups are sort of fighting over the youth and indoctrinating people into these ideas. And for someone like me to literally just go out there and say, these are what your rights are, this is where our country came from, these are the documents that guide us. To go out there and say those things and then have different biases from the administrators come out and say, like, oh no, we don't like those ideas. We have our own set of ideas, and these are the ones that you can talk about. Putting it into different contexts. It's just absurd and frightening that our country could be going in a direction where we're going to have that sort of censorship.
Absolutely. Justice Jackson said in the 1940s, in a case involving free speech, that if we limit it to things that don't matter, or that even matter greatly, he said that free speech goes to the heart of the existing order. It has to be protected for things that even we find outrageous. And the students here on this stage weren't actually trying to present outrageous ideas. They were just trying to present what we see as very reasonable ones. But one of the things the First Amendment does is it protects both the speech we agree with and the speech we disagree with. And all of these students here on this stage are standing up for everybody's free speech rights, for the rights of the pro-life group to speak, but also the same rights apply to the pro-choice group, and the rights of the libertarian to speak out just as much as the rights of a communist to speak out on campus. So what they're standing for here on this stage is freedom for everyone. It's a two-way street. Tolerance is both a two-way street, and freedom of speech obviously doesn't matter if we only protect the speech that we like. So if you would join me just in thanking these students here for standing up not only for their speech, but really for the speech rights of all of us in this room today.